There's a lot of weird games out there, these days more than ever, as people with even limited experience have the capability of making their own games using engines like Unity and then distribute them digitally. A single person can do it, it's never been easier. And that's not to say that there weren't weird games back in the day, there certainly were. I remember the first time I saw the game Cho Aniki. That was a game. But game development was not accessible, especially for games released on consoles. The knowledge and tools to get a game on the Super Nintendo, for instance, it wasn't typically something that a normal person could accomplish. It gave games a certain sense of legitimacy. But of course, there's still some pretty obscure stuff out there. And once emulation started to take off, a lot of people began to really explore some of these more niche titles. One game that rose in notoriety as a result of emulation, due to sheer word of mouth for all the wrong reasons, is a game called Hong Kong 97. Hello and welcome back to Deep Cuts, a show that examines lore, backstories, and theories in video games. Hong Kong 97. For the longest time, it was a mysterious game of unknown origin made by a company called Happysoft for the Super Famicom, which is the Super Nintendo in Japan. Not really much was known about this game or the people that made it. Happysoft never made any other game before or after Hong Kong 97. Not to mention, there were no confirmed physical copies of this game. It basically just showed up on ROM and emulator sites, and word of this game started circulating the internet that way. It caught people's attention due to the bizarre and offensive subject matter, with awareness of the game eventually reaching a crescendo in 2015 when it was featured on an episode of The Angry Video Game Nerd. So what was it with this game? Why were people so fascinated with it? Upon booting up the game, you're greeted with a bizarre message, basically an ad requesting original Super Nintendo games. Send them your floppy. And then there's the music. A 15-second loop of a Chinese children's song that plays constantly, no matter what. Regardless of what's happening in the game, that 15-second loop, it repeats. And once you've reached the title screen, we're greeted with a ripped image of Jackie Chan from the movie Wheels on Meals. It's the real title. And an image of Deng Xiaoping, the former leader of the People's Republic of China. You're then treated to some wholesome exposition. The year 1997 has arrived. A herd of fucking ugly Reds are rushing from the mainland. Crime rates skyrocketed. Hong Kong is ruined. Therefore, the Hong Kong government called Bruce Lee's relative Chin for the massacre of the Reds. Chin is a killer machine. Wipe out all 1.2 billion of the Red communists. That's the story. For real. One person! The mass genocide of 1 billion people. He can do it. This game was made in the 90s, and to this day, tension and animosity between Hong Kong and mainland China persists. It's hard to believe anything like this being made today. I honestly don't think it could happen. And this was on the Super Famicom. It's kind of insane. And it doesn't end there. The gameplay itself was extremely simple. A single-screen game where you shoot and avoid enemies, chock full of unlicensed imagery and that damn 15-second loop burned into your brain. It's hard to imagine anyone would even want to play this. Survive long enough and you'll face off against the final boss, Deng Xiaoping's severed head. For real. What's worse is he actually died in real life not long after, which definitely would have been seen as extremely shocking and tasteless imagery. And as if this all couldn't get any more surreal, if your character dies, then you're greeted with the game over screen. Now, if you think that looks like a real dead body, it's because it is.
There's no way they'd have such bad taste. That's gotta be an actor.
I mean, it even looks out of place. There's even a timestamp for 1992. The game's called Hong Kong 97.
Or we're looking at some guy who died on that date and time in 1992.
This has gotta be the only video game out there that depicts a real dead body. Who was this person? Why was it in this game? What sick person made this? All of these things contributed to this game's notoriety. It piqued people's morbid curiosities. It really is a hateful, disgusting game in premise. And to include the imagery of a real dead person, whoever made it had an objective: to shock and to offend. And for the longest time, this was all just left a mystery. Perhaps it was the spike in interest triggered by AVGN's video, because in recent years, these mysteries have since been resolved. First, let's talk about the nature of this game and how it even saw the light of day in the first place. You see, Hong Kong 97 was on the Super Famicom in Japan, however, not officially. This game was independently sold and distributed using an illegal add-on for the Super Famicom that allowed you to rip and play games via floppy disks, which solves the opening text when you boot up the game. Send them your floppies. This was a small operation, and once you realize this, things kind of start to fall into place and make more sense. Even all of the unlicensed use of real people and logos, none of that mattered because this was technically an illegal game that was only playable on the Super Famicom using an illegal add-on, only in Japan, not exactly casting a real wide net. And of course, to people just browsing ROM sites in the early 2000s and trying out random games, it didn't make any difference. It played like a standard Super Nintendo or a Super Famicom ROM. And the fact that this game even was preserved and made it onto ROM sites at all in the first place, it's kind of a miracle. Because you see, in 2018, the creator of Hong Kong 97 finally broke his silence, and in the process confirmed that only about 30 copies of the game were ever sold. An ad was put out in the newspaper and that's it. 30 copies. One of those copies, and literally the only physical copy that I could find online, belongs to a YouTuber named Ultra Healthy Video Game Nerd, who has a copy that appears authentic and has several videos dedicated to this topic. So you can see why it really is nothing short of amazing that this game even made it onto ROM sites at all when it did. The developer of the game, as expected, is a pretty colorful individual named Yoshihisa Kurosawa. Important to note, he's Japanese and not from Hong Kong or mainland China. In an interview with the South China Morning Post in 2018, Kurosawa said his goal was to make the worst game possible. And he did so basically out of spite for the video game industry, claiming that he was sick and tired of consumer game systems and the way Nintendo were at the top of the pyramid. Only time will tell if Hong Kong 97 had the desired impact on the industry. And there's still the issue of the game over screen. This was one aspect of Hong Kong 97 that was most speculated upon for many years, and for good reason. It truly is disturbing. For a long time there were conflicting rumors about who was in the photo and where it came from. One of the more popular theories is that it belonged to a Polish former professional boxer who had committed suicide. The dates even match up. However, that turned out to be false. It has since been confirmed that the picture is actually a still frame image from a video compilation called New Death File 3, a video compilation of real deaths, something similar to something like Faces of Death. The person in question was a man who had died in the Bosnian Civil War. And this is something that I chose to not watch and verify for myself. I'll take people's word for it. We are at an interesting point in time where things we thought we'd never see solved, something as obscure as a bootleg game from Japan that only sold 30 copies 25 years ago, they're now something that we can trace and find resolutions and closure to. It really is amazing. The origins of Hong Kong 97 is yet another gaming mystery that we can confidently say is resolved. Thanks so much for watching this episode of Deep Cuts, and as always, please let me know what you thought about it. If you did enjoy it, please hit that like button. Helps this channel out a lot. And if you guys have a tip or a suggestion on a topic that you would like to see covered on Deep Cuts, please let me know in the comments section as well, or hit me up on Twitter. Thanks so much for watching this one, guys. Peace.